purpose of this video is to review for the operation of the John Beam EHP tire changer located in the Snap-on shop. Do not use the tire changer until you've participated in an instructor-led demonstration to learn proper use and safe operation. Remember to always wear safety glasses or goggles, never mount a tire on a wheel with different sized diameters, never exceed maximum inflation pressure listed on the tire sidewall, and if in doubt about the operation of this machine, stop your work and ask your instructor for assistance. Okay, let's begin with a review of the nomenclature or the names of the parts of this machine. This part is called the column or the tower. We have a horizontal slide that moves back and forth horizontally. We have a vertical slide that moves up and down vertically. And we have the mount, demount head located right here. We have a handle with a locking device where you can use your thumb to lock the mount, demount head into place. You can use your index finger to move it up and down or in and out. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this demount head. There are some names of the parts here called the wing. There's a finger that sticks out here. And then there's a head area right here. So we're going to use the wing and the finger and the head to help us mount or dismount the tire from the wheel. I have a spare demount mount head here, and so you can get a better shot. We have the tail portion here, the head, and the finger. I think if you use your imagination a little bit, that looks a little bit like a duck. So sometimes I refer to this as the tail of the duck, the bill, and the head of the duck. This part of the machine is called the turntable, and you'll see the wheel clamps located on top of the turntable. We also have small holes, which you can't see from your view right now, that are the air blast jets that help to seal the lower bead to the wheel if necessary. We also have foot pedal controls across the front of the machine, and we have a tire pressure gauge over here. If you look over on this side of the machine, we have the bead breaker tool, the bead breaker blade, and a rubber stop here to rest the wheel and tire assembly up against when we break the bead. This machine is also equipped with what's called an easy mount. Think of these components as maybe a set of extra arms and hands for you. These come in really handy on low profile tires that have very stiff sidewalls. Most of the modern tire changing machines are going to have an apparatus similar to this. This is called the top roller. This is called the bottom roller or disc, and this is called the bead assist arm. And this whole apparatus can move up and down with a switch called the rise and fall switch or the up and down switch. Okay, let's start talking about the operation of the machine a little bit. The pedal on the left tilts the column backwards and forwards. One thing I want to caution you on is before you move the column forward or backward, make sure that the vertical and horizontal slides are locked. If they're loose, they can slide around. Also, if you come in and find the machine with the vertical slide down and the column back, then you're going to want to be sure to push that vertical slide back up so that the mount demount tool doesn't crash in to a wheel assembly that you might have mounted on the turntable. So the first thing to do is make sure that the vertical slide is up and locked, and then you can tilt it forward and make the adjustments to fit your wheel. Okay, let's take a look at the pedal that's the second pedal from the left. This pedal is used to move the wheel clamps out. If you press the pedal again, they move in. One thing you want to make sure of is that these wheel clamps have two positions, a back position and a forward position. For most of the wheels and tires you do in this shop, you're probably going to be using this forward position. One thing to be sure of though is don't let one be in the rear position while the others are in the forward position. You're not going to get a good clamp on your wheel. Another feature about these wheel clamps is you have a hook side here which will grab the flange of the wheel from the outside, or you can grab the inside of the wheel with these little pads here that come out and squeeze against it. Probably nowadays with all of the alloy wheels, the preferred method of clamping a wheel is from the inside with the hooks. That minimizes damage and scratching on the wheel. Now we'll look at the third pedal from the left. This operates the bead breaker assembly. So when the wheel's installed in the bead breaker position, you step on the pedal and it pulls the blade in to break the bead of the tire from the wheel. Okay, the fourth pedal to the left here on the very right hand side is used to rotate the turntable clockwise when you push down, and if you pull up on the pedal, it rotates the turntable counterclockwise. So we have one more pedal here on the side of the machine that actually has two functions. If you press part of the weight down, you get air out of an air hose to inflate the tire after you've remounted it onto the wheel. You can also use this foot pedal to help seat the lower bead of the tire onto the wheel when you're having difficulty making a seal. So we press all the way down on this pedal and we'll get a blast of air out of these jets. So here's part of the way down for the air hose, all the way down, and you get a blast of air out of these four jets that help to seal the lower bead. Okay, let's get this wheel and tire assembly prepared for mounting onto the machine. The first thing that we want to do is remove the valve core from the valve stem. Now, this thing can shoot out like a torpedo, so you want to have it facing away from you. Use the special tool to remove the valve core and let the air deflate from the tire. Okay, so while your tire is deflating, maybe use that time to remove any weights, either clip-on weights or stick-on weights, especially these clip-on weights, because they will damage and scratch the wheel really badly and damage the bead of the tire if you leave these installed while using the machine. Okay, now we're going to break the bead. So we're going to place the tire up here between the breaker blade and the rubber pads on the back. Now, one thing we want to be very mindful of is most cars today are going to come equipped since about the mid-2000s and even earlier with tire pressure monitoring systems. This particular wheel has a tire pressure monitoring system. I can tell that because it has a metal stem. So I want to be sure not to damage that sensor. So I'm going to place the blade up close to the wheel, but we want to be careful not to scratch that wheel. I'm going to step on the third pedal from the left, which is the breaker pedal, and when I press it in, it breaks that bead. As soon as it moves the bead out of the flange of the wheel, I'm going to stop and let the breaker blade return. You may have to go around at least 2 times, maybe 3 or 4, to get a stiff sidewall broken away from the bead. Again, be mindful of that TPMS sensor. I'm a little too close for comfort there. I'm going to move it over just a little bit. So go around as many times on the front and the back of the tire to break the bead away from the wheel. Okay, now we're ready to mount the wheel onto the turntable. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the column is shifted backwards. Gives us more workspace. Okay? And then because this is an alloy wheel, I'm going to move the wheel clamps out. So I'm going to press the pedal second from the left, move those wheel clamps out, and then when I put the wheel assembly up on the turntable, we're going to move the hooks of the wheel clamps in behind the bead or the flange of the wheel. First of all, make sure that your column is in the rearward position by using the left pedal. And then think about if you're going to clamp the wheels from the outside of the flange, which is recommended for most alloy wheels, you probably don't want to start with the hooks completely pulled back at their widest position. The reason for that is the hook may start here out on the sidewalls, and as they move in, they could pinch the tire up against the rim of the wheel. So one trick you might do until you get experience with the machine is just measure the diameter of the wheel. This is 18.5 inches. I'm going to set my blades up, my hooks up to about 19.5. Give myself about an inch of room for the hooks to come directly in to grab the bottom flange of the wheel. All right, so I've moved my clamps in close to the diameter of the wheel. I'm going to put the wheel up on the turntable. There's a little black dot in there. You can kind of get the wheel centered onto the turntable. And then while I push down on the wheel, I'm going to step on the pedal that's the second from the left, push down, and those clamps, those hooks on those clamps are going to come in and grab the bottom flange of the wheel. After you clamp the wheel on, get down and do a visual and make sure that all 4 of your hooks have grabbed the wheel securely all the way around. Okay, it's not a bad idea after you mount the wheel and tire assembly in to use some lubricant and work it around the bead of the tire as best as you can. This will help assist in getting the tire removed from the wheel. Right. Okay, let's position the mount-demount head. Bring the column forward. Unlock the vertical and horizontal slides. Move the mount-demount tool right up against the edge of the wheel. Lock it. It moves about 1 millimeter or 2 away, and that's what it's designed to do, to make sure there's enough clearance so we don't scratch the wheel. I've placed my valve stem with the TPMS sensor about 90 degrees from the tool so that we can avoid damage on that. Use this crowbar, put it in under the finger or the bill of the duck, and while pushing down 180 degrees opposite to hold the bead of the tire into the drop center part of the wheel, pull the bead up and over the head of the demount duck tool. And while rotating the table clockwise, make sure you hold the bead down into the drop center, and you can see how easy that pops out of there. Again, I was being mindful of my TPMS sensor. I started with the sensor 90 degrees to the right of the head so that we won't damage that as we remove that top bead. Okay, now we have to remove the bottom bead, so we're going to pull the tire up. We're going to get our crowbar in underneath of the lower bead and pull that bead up and over the head of the demount tool and rotate clockwise. Once the tire is removed from the wheel, we can step on the pedal to move the column backwards and remove the tire. Okay, now we're ready to reinstall the tire back onto the wheel. Before you do, put some thought into which direction the sidewall is going to face, customer preference on that, and then be sure to thoroughly lube the beads. This is going to be a brand new tire, and the last thing you want to do is ruin $150, $200 tire. So put the lubricant around the bead of the tire on the inside as well, this inside, the flat inside part. And if you're working with a low profile, really stiff sidewall, go ahead and lube up the bead as well. All right, let's put the tire back up on the wheel with the proper sidewall facing the outside that the customer prefers. We'll tilt the column forward. The mount-demount head should be in the same position where we left it before. Okay, so to get the bottom bead started, we're going to put the bead over the wing and under the head of the mounting tool there, and then kind of slide it in the opposite side of the bead over here. Start working it into the drop center of that wheel. Sometimes you can actually do this manually and get the wheel to slip on just by spinning the tire. But we have the technology, we might as well use it. So I'm going to rotate with the pedal on the right here. I'm going to rotate the turntable, and that bottom bead is just going to pop right on. That bottom bead is usually pretty easy to get started. Okay, so now we're going to install the top bead, but before I do, we're going to rotate that TPMS sensor around to about the 5 o'clock position over here so we can be sure and protect that from any damage. So same thing, we're going to get the bead on this side over the wing and on this side under the head, and when we start rotating the turntable, I'm going to push down over here. As it starts to rotate, I'll push down opposite the head so that we can hold that tire down into the drop center of the wheel to give it plenty of room to stretch over and pop over the flange of the wheel over on this side. So here we go. So watch your fingers. Hold that sidewall down into that drop center as best you can, and you can see it just pops right on. Okay, we're ready to inflate the tire. We'll have to seat the bead first. I'm going to tip the column backwards, grab the inflator, put it on the valve stem, step on the pedal on the side. Now, keep fingers away from the bead area because they pop up, and sometimes they pop up with quite a bit of force, and you wouldn't want to get the tip of your finger stuck in between the wheel and the tire. Now, if you're having trouble getting the beads to seal, sometimes you'll need to grab onto the outside of the tire, pull up to hold the upper bead up into its seat as best you can, and then go ahead and blast with the air pedal here on the left side of the machine. And then sometimes that'll help get that lower bead sealed with that force of air. Now, on this machine, once you get the bead seated, then I like to remember to disengage the wheel clamps. Remember, those wheel clamps were hooked in between the tire bead and the bead seat on the flange here. And so before I bring the tire up to full inflation, I want to back those hooks out of there just to make it a little easier on the machine and to keep from damaging the flange or the tire. So that's an easy one to forget. You're at the end of the job and you're ready to inflate the tire. You want to remember to, once you've seated those beads, to be sure and pull those clamps back to remove the hooks. Okay, we're inflating the tire. I usually just try to put enough air in so that the beads will stay seated. Remove the air hose using your tool. Reinstall the valve core. Then you can finish topping off the pressure to whatever the specification is for the vehicle that you're installing the tire on. Okay, let's talk about the easy mount a little bit here. Quick review, we have the upper roller right here. We have the bead assist arm right here. And we have the lower roller or lower disc here. And we have a lever that will rise and lower the easy mount. As I said before earlier in the video, think of these as an extra set of arms to help you dismount or mount low profile tires, tires with very stiff sidewalls. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is how we can use the upper roller to assist us on a tire that has a very stiff sidewall, assist in getting our pry bar into the top of the demount head. So I'm going to lower the roller down and just use it to push the tire sidewall down enough so that I can fit the pry bar on top of the finger or the duck bill. And then once you've got room to put the pry bar in under the bead, go ahead and lift that roller, get it out of the way, and then while pushing down on the bead on the opposite side, you can pull up and get the bead into position for removal. All right, now we can also use this roller disc on the bottom to come in under the tire, bring it up, and again, this is especially for extra wide tires, super stiff sidewalls, you're having trouble getting that upper bead off, you can help encourage that by lifting slightly on the lower sidewall as it rotates off. Like that. Okay, another feature of the Easy Mount is we can use the bead assist arm, is what this arm is called, and the upper roller on a very stiff sidewall tire. We can use this to hold the tire bead down into the drop center of the wheel. After you get the bead set up on the remount head, go ahead and lower the bead assist arm and the roller down into the sidewall, and then as you rotate the tire, the bead assist arm will move around with it, and of course you'll need to stop the turntable before you crash the bead assist arm into the vertical slide here. So that can really help get a stiff tire reinstalled onto a wheel without damaging the tire. All right, another feature of the bead assist arm is we have an adapter here that we can slide in, and we can use the bead assist arm as a wheel assist, so to speak. We can use it if we've got, again, a wheel with very stiff sidewalls. If we're having trouble, remember how you need to push down on the wheel when you're clamping the wheel at the very beginning before you dismount? Sometimes with a real stiff sidewall, it's difficult to push down enough on the wheel to get the clamps to come in and hook in on the underside of the flange. So we can use the bead assist arm to push down slightly on the wheel for us to compress the sidewalls a bit, and then go ahead and use your foot pedal to slide the wheel clamps in. Remember, this video is intended to be a review and not to replace an instructor-led demonstration. So feel free to review the video as many times as you need to, and ask questions of your instructor whenever a safety issue or an operational issue is at hand. Thanks for watching.